there! In today's video, I'm creating a scrapbook layout using the Heirloom card kit from Stampin' Up. The soft colors, delicate patterns, and vintage style ephemera felt so French inspired to me, I couldn't resist turning it into a scrapbook page. The kit comes with everything you need to make 8 beautiful layered cards. There are pink card bases, soft blue, and a very light, I think that's like a crumb cake color. The kit also includes a lovely stamp set. The design on this one is my favorite. There is a clear block, which I forgot to show you, a stamping spot in pecan pie, 8 envelopes, adhesive, dimensionals, and a whole bunch of ephemera. There's tags, banners, and lots of flowers. I've already made 4 of the cards, so that's why you're only seeing 4 card bases here. As I was building the cards, I kept thinking about the beautiful French restaurant my husband and I dined at during our Mexico holiday. So I decided right then and there to stop making the cards, and I'm going to stretch this kit beyond its original purpose by creating a scrapbook layout. I managed to make all 8 cards even after creating this layout, and I'll share those at the end of the video. I'm documenting 2 photos today on a single page layout. If you're looking for creative ways to get more out of your kits, I hope this gives you some inspiration. Since I'm working with a card kit, I'll need to bring in some pattern paper and cardstock to build the base of the layout. I want something that complements the photos and of course works well with the card bases. The wood flooring in the pictures caught my eye right away, and it led me to the Country Woods collection, and I couldn't believe my luck. This is a perfect match. I really enjoy this collection for its soft textures and neutral tones. In one way, it could be kind of beachy, and then also, to me, it brings in a cozy, grounded feel that balances the more delicate elements from the kit. Then I noticed the woven details in the chairs and the placemats, which reminded me of the woven textures paper. Again, another perfect fit. Both of these are great add-on collections if you want to add like texture without introducing too much, bold color, or really not much color at all. To tie everything together, I pulled in some Willow white cardstock and Daffodil Delight. There's yellow in the flowers in my dress and the dish in front of my husband James. So that did feel like a natural addition. Without planning it, a lot of my layouts lately have ended up being kind of that frame style. And this one is going to be no exception. I'm thinking of creating a multi-layered frame. I love this wood grain paper, but using it over a large area might be a bit too much. So I'm using it as the outer frame. This soft woven pattern will be the main background. Yep, it's not going to be white. I'm adding a piece of white cardstock in between the layers to break things up. I don't love how the 2 pattern papers look stacked directly on top of each other, and this will soften up that transition and keep things from feeling too heavy. I'll gut out the centers of both of the wood grain and the white cardstock to save those pieces for later. For photo placement, I'm keeping things simple and centering them on the page, maybe staggering them slightly to create areas for like the title and embellishment clusters. The photo of me is printed slightly smaller at about 4 by 5, and the photo of James is 4 by 5.5. Now about the card bases. There's not a lot of pink in my photos, except for maybe the flowers in James's shirt and of course, our skin tones. I'm debating whether to use the pink card spaces or just bring pink in through embellishments. The crumb cake card base doesn't offer much contrast, so I'll likely skip that one. I do want to use the blue card base. I really like that printed design on it. It has that vintage Parisian feel that adds a nice contrast to the more modern look in the restaurant. I think it works well as an anchor point for my photos, and the color complements both my dress and James's shirt. If I place that here with the two photos on top, you won't even notice the crease or like that fold line. I still want to bring yellow into the layout. I could match the photos on it. Yeah, that's not bad, but it really draws attention to that French onion soup in front of James. And the picture of me, wow, yeah, my dress really pops now. I'm still deciding, but I'm also thinking of adding an additional layer in the Daffodil Delight to the frame. Now let's see, yellow then white, or maybe yellow on top of the white cardstock. Oh yeah, I like that. It adds a nice contrast and a pop of color without matting the photos directly and pulling focus in those two directions. I feel like it brings everything together. I'm happy with this plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim out the center of the wood grain pattern paper. So in case you haven't seen this before, or you're new here, or you're curious about how it works, to do this, you'll need a rotary style trimmer, the one with the V-shaped blade that runs along a track. I've had this Fisker one for years, and it's still going strong. Now, Stampin' Up! Carries a similar trimmer, and I've heard great things about it. I just haven't invested in one myself. If it's not broke, you know how it goes. I'm leaving a 1-inch edge all the way around. I place the paper in my trimmer at the 1-inch mark, then lower the blade at 1 inch from the top and stop 1 inch before the bottom. Then I rotate and repeat the process on all 4 sides. Not only does this save paper, but it also helps reduce bulk in your layout. Just a note, you can't use a guillotine or a rotary trimmer with the round blade for this. Once the cuts are made, I'll go in with my scissors and fully release the center of the paper. Next up is the white cardstock. I need to decide how much of that wood grain border I want to show to determine the size. I'm liking this inset, so I'm going to trim it down to 11¼ inches. I am definitely a visual crafter. I like to test things out before I fully commit. Let's see how that looks. Yep, that looks good. I'll trim the other side as well and make it a square 11¼ by 11¼ I'll gut the center off camera, the same method as before. Now for the yellow cardstock. I'm trimming that to 11 by 11, which gives me a nice small white border. And yes, I'll gut the center of that one too, just like the others. The woven pattern paper will be the final layer at 10¾ by 10¾ continuing the 1/4 inch borders. This one I'm leaving fully intact. Before I attach the layers together, I'm going to ink distress all the edges using Pecan pie. This helps define each layer and adds that little extra detail I love. I'm using a sponge for this step. I'm holding it perpendicular to the paper so I get a clean edge without too much ink. So just like a soft line all the way around. Now, if you're using the ink spot that comes with the kit, just keep in mind that the small pads have a felt surface instead of foam. And in my experience, they're not quite as juicy. So you could apply the ink directly to the paper without making a big mess. That's what I've found anyway. Now, normally at this point, I have a title in mind for the layout, but right now I'm kind of drawing a blank. Instead of overthinking it, I'm just going to move on to the fun part embellishing. Let me know in the comments, do you enjoy embellishing or do you find it a little tricky? I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes it comes so easily and sometimes I struggle. Now this green tag I'm not going to use. There really isn't any green in the photos. This other tag has better colors, but butterflies aren't really the look I'm going for here. Now this card is beautiful. The yellow flowers would tie in nicely with the ones on my dress, but the overall vibe feels a little too country. I do like this octagon shape card and these two banners, and so those are going into the yes pile. There are also two identical tags here, one in brown and one in black, and I'm leaning towards the brown because it fits better with the color scheme. This card is my favorite. The colors are just right and it really feels French to me with the stamped image and those beautiful pink flowers. And of course, all the floral ephemera from the kit. So pretty. I absolutely love the flowers. So let's use them all. Really, I'm looking for anything in those brown tones with, some soft pink, some yellow mixed in, and a little bit of blue. My idea for this page is more French meets tropics. I'm also going to mix in some of the vellum leaves or, sprigs. I think they'll add a lovely, soft touch. I've got plenty here to start building two beautiful main clusters. So let's move everything aside and get started. I like to begin with the bigger elements when building up my clusters. I may not use all of these icons, but it's great to have so many options to play with. These banners caught my eye while I was putting the cards together. I felt like they were really French inspired and the colors are just right. I knew I wanted to tuck them kind of in behind a photo, maybe like this. Oh, that's pretty. There weren't many people in the restaurant. Our reservation was for 9 o'clock at night, so it was pretty quiet. There's a large party seated behind James that I wouldn't mind covering. Maybe this tag could work perfectly for that. I don't know. I'm going to add to the layers with this card in behind as well. From here, I'll start building up the clusters with some of the flowers, distributing the colors evenly across the two areas I'm working on. So these pictures were taken on our most recent trip to Mexico. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you might remember the sunset cruise layout I shared. These photos were taken shortly afterwards during the dinner we had following the cruise. We still felt like we were rocking on the boat, so ginger ale ended up being our drink of choice that night. I'm building up my clusters, creating some height along the side of this photo, tucking in flowers and playing with the placement until everything feels balanced. I'm going to tuck the octagon card behind the picture of me. I think that might be a great spot for the title. And this little sprig, I'm going to use that to cover the couple sitting behind me. Do you do that too? Intentionally place embellishments to hide people or objects in your photos? I do that all the time. It's funny. Sometimes you imagine this perfect romantic evening, a sunset cruise, followed by a cozy French restaurant, but reality has other plans. Now, the food was incredible. I just wish we could have enjoyed it on a night we were feeling, a little more steady. We made the most of it though and managed to sample all the yummy dishes. The brie was my favorite. That's the dish that was sitting in front of me in the photo. I decided on a title. I pulled out the Everyday You and Me stamp set. There's a few great options in here. I considered Better Together, but I'm going to go with the Love Every Moment. I really enjoy the mix of fonts on my titles, and this stamp has just that. And lucky has it, I think it might fit perfectly on this card. And it does. Yep, that's what I'm going for. Now for the color. I'm debating between Pecan Pie for more of a subtle tone-on-tone look or Early Espresso for a bit more contrast. While I think about that, I keep glancing at the pink card base. I like the soft grid pattern on it. Now what if I place it behind the photo of James? It's not bad. Maybe I'm going to cut it in half at that fold line to get a better idea of how it'll look. Okay, it's fine. It adds a bit of balance to the layout, so I'll leave it there for now and keep building. The flowers on James's shirt are hibiscus. So to play off that French tropical vibe I'm going with, I'm using the Happy Hibiscus stamp bundle. This is a 2-step stamp, and honestly, it's one of my favorites. Geez, I hope I don't say that about every stamp set. But there are so many I like. There's a coordinating hybrid embossing folder that I'm going to use too. First, I'll place the outline stamp on the Misty door. I'm using Pretty in Pink for the color. I want white flowers with a soft pink outline. I didn't have to use the Misty. But for large stamps like this, sometimes you don't get a clean impression the first time, and using the Misty makes it super easy to re-stamp if needed. That's stamped nicely. Now I'm going to cut and emboss the flowers all in one go. I've lined the die over the flowers and secured it with washi tape. Now sticky notes or low tack tape works better, but this is what I have on hand right now. Next, I'm placing the paper and dies inside the embossing folder. Sorry, I'm a little off camera here. I want to match up the flowers, and when it's lined up just right, the die kind of clicks into place. Now I'm going to run this through my machine, and I'll be right back. Here's how the flowers turned out. I love the texture. While I was off camera, I pulled out my flower bin. I keep all the leftover stamped images from previous layouts in here. And it's always fun to, dig through and see if there's anything else I can use. These ones are stamped with Pretty in Pink and Petal Pink for the fill color. And I think they'll make a great addition. For the third cluster, now that I've established where my title is going to go, I'll place some flowers in and around that to create another cluster. I've decided not to use the card base after all. I think what draws me to it is the grid pattern that was stamped on the card more than anything else. And luckily, the stamp set that comes with the kit includes the same pattern. So I'm going to stamp directly onto the layout coming up from behind the clusters. I'm using Early Espresso for the ink. Let's grab a scrap piece of paper and do a test stamp first. I think that looks great. I'm trying to make an effort to use as many items from this kit as possible on this layout. So I'll go ahead and stamp on the left side first, right about here. I'll hold that in place for a couple of seconds here so the ink has a chance to soak in. Yep, I like that. I think it's really going to add to those clusters. Let's move everything back into place. Now, I'm so glad I haven't detached anything down yet. I'll add another stamp on the lower left corner. I love using stamps on my layout, and this design is perfect for background stamping. I'm sure you noticed they stamped a bit funny. Now, it's because of all the layers behind it. But once I moved all the embellishments back into place, no one will ever know. See? Perfect. I'll stamp one at the top of the photo of James too, and maybe a few more in second generation or that stamped off look. I'll finish that off camera, and while I'm at it, I'll stamp the title using the same ink color to tie everything together. I'm really happy with how the clusters are coming together. I decided not to use the extra hibiscus flowers, and I'm sticking with the white and pink ones. My third cluster up at the title, I'm missing a touch of blue. So I'm going to fussy cut out two of the flowers from the bottom of this larger ephemera piece. They were getting covered anyway, so this lets me make better use of them. Don't be afraid to cut up your ephemera to make it work for you. It's just paper, and it's art. There's no right or wrong, just whatever feels right to you. I know I can sometimes get caught up in trying to, make everything perfect, but really it's about preserving memories, telling the story, and don't forget to enjoy the process. That little pop of blue up at the title was just what that cluster needed. It helped balance everything out and draw your eye around the page. To fill in my clusters, I stamped a few leaves using the Happy Hibiscus set. These are also 2-step stamps. On white cardstock, I used Granny Apple Green for the fill and Garden Green for the outline. Then I stamped just the outline on the light side of Granny Apple Green cardstock using the same coordinating ink. I did a few more in Garden Green as well, and there are 2 leaf sizes, so I made a few in each. I stamped a few more than I probably need, but everything left over will just go in my embellishment bins. I like my layouts to have one larger cluster, one medium cluster, and then one smaller one. And since I'm trying to cover up part of the background behind Jane's, that naturally became the largest cluster. Flowers make a much better camouflage than the tags. So if you noticed, I ended up tucking the tags behind the pictures and used the flowers to camouflage those people. The cluster behind my photo is the medium one, and the smallest cluster, of course, supports the title. I love adding little verbal details to my clusters to help tell the story. Now, the stamp set that came in the kit had a few sentiments that worked well here, like I feel lucky to have you and thoughtful and grateful. I had already stamped some extras while I was making the cards, so I figured why not use them. For finishing touches, I used the iridescent rhinestone basic jewels. They reflect the colors of the layout and add just the right amount of sparkle. I'm using 3 rhinestones in each cluster and all 3 sizes. The Take Your Pick tool with the putty end makes placing them super easy. And I always forget that I have this thing, but it's so handy. I really enjoyed blending that French meets tropical vibe. The soft colors, those vintage elements, and just a playful twist on a card kit. It's always satisfying to take something intended for one project and make it work in a completely different way. For the journaling, I printed onto vellum. I find I get the best results using the plain paper setting and either draft or like the standard quality for the printing. This helps minimize smudging by using less ink. The best setting, and using quotations, adds too much ink and tends to smudge. Make sure you give the ink some time to dry before adhering it to your layout. I left a blank margin at the top of the journaling strip so that I could tuck it behind the cardstock base, and this is the perfect spot to hide the adhesive. I wrote about pretty much what I've been telling you, the name of the restaurant, what we ordered to drink, and I wrapped it up with the line, "We still loved every minute of it," to tie in with the title that I chose. So here's a close-up of the finished layout. I think the title area turned out really fun. That octagon ephemera piece worked perfectly. And here's that carefully placed sprig. And in the cluster over by James, that little card here might eventually get the date. I'm still deciding on that. And I've popped nothing up on dimensionals this time. I did end up moving the two banners up just a touch off camera since I was covering too much of that beautiful card base. And you can check that out in the still shots on Instagram. Oh, right. Before I go, I almost forgot to show you all the cards I made with this kit. The instructions suggest stamping on the envelopes, so I gave that a try. And I think it's a nice finishing touch. These are the two extra cards I created with that base I had cut in half. I used the grid texture stamp with Pretty in Pink ink to mimic the printed background that was already on some of them. Then I just layered up some of the tags and the flowers. And I'll just, place them onto a white card base, and that's that. And I'm really happy with what I got out of this kit. 8 cards and a beautiful scrapbook layout. I followed the directions to a point. I cut some of the tags in half to make them stretch just that little bit further. And if the instructions called for, like 3 flowers, I may have just used 2. It's all about, making it work for you, right? So thank you so much for spending this crafty time with me. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'd love to have you join me for more scrapbook inspiration. Let me know in the comments, have you ever used a card kit for on a layout or mixed styles like this to suit your story? If you missed one of my latest videos, I will link that here. And for my fellow Canadians, there is a chance to win a stamp set, so be sure to check that out. Until next time, let's keep telling our stories one page at a time.